Affordable Space Adventures was one of those Wii U eShop games I really wanted to get my hands on. Matter of fact, I even made a video back in March of 2014 where I shone the spotlight on the game to get more people hyped up for it. What makes Affordable Space Adventures so intriguing and ultimately unique is that it's one of the few Wii U games to actually utilize the gamepad to the full. The game is built specifically for Nintendo's home console, so the devs took that and ran with it, creating an experience that you aren't really going to find anywhere else. If you don't know, Affordable Space Adventures is a collaborative effort between Knapnok Games, who you might know as the studio who made the rather bizarre Wii U eShop title Spin the Bottle. Oh my guacamole. What is this? And the second dev is Nifflas Games, who makes more atmospheric type adventures like Night Sky. These two studios came together with their strengths in their own particular fields and collectively created this stealth puzzle spaceship simulator. Affordable Space Adventures has a great presentation that definitely helps set the tone for this game. The story is about a cheery and upbeat travel agency who promises a safe, affordable space adventure to some exotic planet that is bursting with beauty. So what could possibly go wrong? Everything goes wrong. You get suckered into going on this adventure, and once you make a not so pleasant landing on the planet, you'll come to see that not everything was as promised, and it creates an uneasy feel. The rest of the story is mainly just told through exploration, but without spoiling it, boy did I like the ending to this game. It gave me a Twilight Zone-ish vibe, and that's awesome. But that's really just the candy coating to this M&M, and what you really want to know is how well Affordable Space Adventures handles itself in the gameplay department. Piloting the rinky-dink spaceship from the oh-so-honest travel agency, you'll be flying through 38 bite-sized stages that are full of dark and strange caverns, and solving puzzles that all have to do with tweaking the various mechanics of your cheap ship. And there's quite a number of adjustments that you'll come to be familiar with throughout the course of the game, as it slowly introduces more and more. Nearly all the tweaking will be done via the heads-down display on the gamepad screen, which gives you precise control over all the internal systems of the ship, like the thrusters, anti-gravity, stabilizers, engines, landing gears, blah blah blah, and so on. You'll be tweaking everything very often, because the planet is littered with alien robots. Each robot is sensitive to a specific amount of heat, sound, or electricity, and if you go over that limit, they will blow your scrawny ship to bits. This game requires a lot of patience and trial and error, because you'll be testing out many different ways of tweaking the internals of your ship so you can get past the baddies unscathed. Knapnok did a fairly good job at creating a variety of different puzzles, and some involve more than just trying to sneak past the robots. One of my biggest complaints about the game though has to be the puzzles where you're just trying to get around an alien robot. I found it to be rather boring and tedious, spending minutes tweaking the ship just right so you can sneak past them. The trial and error that goes into it just isn't very enthralling, but when the missions go out of their way to create situations that involve more elements beyond the robots, like carrying blocks or evading lasers, that's where the fun factor starts to kick in. It's much more entertaining when you're being proactive, like when you bust out the sliding panels and jump over a gap housing a robot, and not so much when you're sitting in one spot trying to figure out the right combination of tweaks that need to be made. Also, this is more of a fault with the Wii U itself, but it can feel a bit cumbersome having to constantly move your head back and forth from the TV to the gamepad. It's not like the 3DS where the screens are right next to each other and it's easy to see them. It's a bit more obtuse with the Wii U since the screens are much farther apart. This complaint would probably be more pacified if you have a couple of friends over, since the game supports up to 3 players. In co-op mode, everyone must coordinate as a crew, controlling the spaceship together, with one being the engineer and another being the pilot. Delegating the work to different people would help alleviate some of the stress when you're playing solo and you don't have to do everything on your own. I personally didn't get to play co-op since no one ever comes over to my house, but you can imagine that would be the case. And there's bound to be bickering, lots of bickering. In terms of the visuals of Affordable Space Adventures, Nifflas brings his atmospheric expertise to create a very dark and gloomy, pseudo-realistic environment that looks beautiful. It's all very much on the darker end of the color palette, but there's a wealth of different colors and settings you'll come across, and best of all, it's highly detailed. You'll spelunk through caverns decorated with flora and fauna, environments cast in a pinkish fog, or even rooms that feel a bit more alien or factory-like. I also like how they try to make the gamepad feel like it's actually a control panel. Sometimes it will need to reboot and a bunch of coding will scroll by, other times it will get damaged and it looks like your screen is cracked, and it can even get all foggy and frosted over when the temperature gets to be too cold. It's a nice attention to detail to make the game that much more immersive. In terms of the soundtrack, well, there really isn't much of one outside of the mellow drones that play at the main menu. For the particular vibe they were going for with Affordable Space Adventures, which is more alien, spacey, and distant, it calls for more ambient sounds. So you'll mostly just be hearing the whir of your engine, the beeps and boops resonating from the alien robots, or even sounds originating from the environments themselves. It's meant to have a sense of isolation, and having a rocking soundtrack with guitars and trumpets going to town just wouldn't convey that feeling. There's also some voice acting done in the game, which you'll hear mainly from the advertisements that pop up a few times, and they're pretty spot on. In terms of the game's replayability, it's kind of its downfall, because there's next to none. There are 2 difficulty levels you can choose from, those being normal and easy, but once you beat all 38 stages, you're left with nothing to do. There's no collectibles, extra stages, a new game plus, or anything of that sort. Affordable space adventures will cost you a hefty $20 on the Wii U eShop, and you can beat the game in around 5 hours. And since its replay value is seriously lacking, you're not going to be adding many more hours beyond that. It makes it that much harder to recommend to someone who's a bit more thrifty since the playtime is quite short. Overall, Affordable Space Adventures culminates into an interesting experience that you won't find anywhere else on the eShop. It's most certainly unique, and it does make extensive use of the Wii U gamepad in a creative way, but sometimes the puzzle solving can feel a bit tedious and more along the lines of trial and error. The game does continue to introduce new mechanics throughout the adventure to keep things from becoming stale, but sometimes certain puzzles aren't the most captivating. Plus, tacked on with a higher price tag and short playtime, it's a bit tougher to recommend. So in all, thegamingpixelshow.com thinks Affordable Space Adventures is a good game, and that will bring us to the end of this review. And if you like what you saw, please give this video a thumbs up and add your favorites and all that good stuff, and you can stay tuned for more videos in the future. But I will talk to you later in the next video, guys. Bye!